Tonight, a notorious fugitive captured. Ratko Mladic, charged with the massacre of thousands of Bosnian Muslims, is arrested in Serbia after 15 years of hiding. I'm Harry Smith. Also tonight, where are they? Hundreds are still unaccounted for 4 days after the tornado devastated Joplin, Missouri. Born to Run, Sarah Palin announces a campaign-style bus tour. And a setback in the battle against heart disease. Super strength niacin fails the test.
This is the CBS Evening News.
Good evening. For nearly 16 years, he was one of the world's most wanted men, accused of genocide and the slaughter of thousands of civilians as head of the Bosnian Serb military. But for Ratko Mladic, there is no more hiding. Serbian authorities arrested him today at a relative's home, 60 miles northeast of Belgrade. Now 69, Mladic will soon face justice before the International War Crimes Tribunal, and his arrest is likely to open up old wounds in the former Yugoslavia. Mark Phillips is in London and begins our coverage.
It was a nasty, bloody, ugly little war where the victims, mostly civilian, were buried in neat rows or dumped in mass graves, and where there was plenty of blame to go around. But no one has more blood on their hands than the squat man in the baseball cap finally arrested in a dawn raid by Serbian police. Ratko Mladic is a stumbling, rumored to be ill old man now. But in his prime as the strutting head of the Bosnian Serb army, his very name struck fear in the hearts of his enemies, for good reason. He's accused of ordering the shelling of Sarajevo and of targeting areas where civilian casualties were likely to be highest, like the water taps that were set up because the main water supply was cut. He was the officer whose troops overran what was supposed to be the UN safe haven of Srebrenica, where thousands of Bosnian Muslims had taken refuge. It was Mladic who guaranteed the safety of those present before separating the women and children from the men, and then ordering the systematic slaughter of more than 7,000 of those men in the worst mass killing in Europe since the Nazi atrocities of the Second World War. Colonel Bob Stewart commanded NATO forces in Bosnia, and in Ratko Mladic, he says, he knew he was dealing with a man with no sense of morality or honor.
These people have a very warped sense of what is right and what is wrong. As far as they're concerned, what is right is anything that supports their own people, and what is wrong is sometimes allowing anyone that opposes them to stay alive.
Ratko Mladic is more than just an indicted war criminal, he's a bargaining chip. Producing him was a condition of Serbia's application to join the European Union. Yet his popularity in Serbia remains so strong, it took them almost 16 years to give him up. Serbia's Western-looking president, Boris Tadic, said the arrest marks a turning point.
Today we closed one chapter of our recent history.
But for anyone who witnessed that history, the arrest of Ratko Mladic opens up a long sealed box of unhappy memories, of the fear, of the bodies, of a woman named Knita Fokac, whose husband had been killed by a shell and who only carried on because of her child.
Do you have difficulty day to day? Do you cry sometimes? Do you have other...
Yes, very often. My pillow knows the truth.
And memories of what Bosnian doctors called the Sarajevo syndrome.
They're calling it passive suicide, where people who simply can't take it anymore go out into some of the more dangerous parts of town, hoping to be shot or shelled.
A hope Ratko Mladic was only too willing to fulfill.
Mladic's court appearance today was suspended because his health is being described as very poor. His actual condition, perhaps, or maybe the first hint of a defense strategy. Harry?
Mark Phillips in London tonight. Thank you. Earlier today, I spoke with retired General Wesley Clark, who met with Mladic twice back in the mid-1990s. I asked him to describe the Serb commander.
Smart, cunning, ruthless, ideological, and absolutely without conscience insofar as common humanity.
he held the UN forces that were trying to protect Muslim civilians there, he held them in contempt.
It was easy for him, as a military guy, to hold these peacekeepers, blue-helmeted, in contempt. What he really did was establish psychological ascendancy over them and deceive and manipulate their commanders and move them out of the way.
So he could kill 8,000 to 10,000 young men and boys.
He was seeking the elimination of any potential opposition.
Why is it important that he was finally captured?
Well, this legitimates the government. The fact that he was captured, turned in by the president of Serbia and his forces is a huge step forward for Serbia. It's a wonderful sign for the people of Serbia and for the people of the region that Serbia, which is in many ways the economic keystone of the Balkans, has seen the future and is moving toward it in a positive way.
This was a deadly day in Afghanistan. 9 NATO service members were killed. At least 8 were Americans who died when a bomb went off in a field they were patrolling in Kandahar province. At least 140 Americans have been killed in Afghanistan this year. The United States is going back to Osama bin Laden's compound, this time with the knowledge and permission of the Pakistani government. Bob Orr is in Washington. He tells us the CIA is going in, but what is this all about? Bob?
Well, Harry, it's very interesting. The CIA now apparently will get a chance to literally dig deeper for evidence inside the Osama bin Laden hideout. U.S. officials tell us that Pakistan now will allow a CIA evidence and forensics team to search for anything that might be stashed, maybe somewhere inside the walls of the compound or under the floorboards. Navy SEALs, as we've told you, grabbed a mountain of material, files, hard drives, stacks of notes the night bin Laden was killed, but the commandos only had 40 minutes on the ground in the compound, and critical evidence might have been left behind. Now, we have to say we don't know if there's anything useful there, but we are told that forensics experts will use things like high-tech sensors and infrared cameras capable of finding hidden or buried materials, Harry.
So, Bob, do you think this means Pakistani-U.S. relations might be on the mend?
Well, it has to help some. I mean, there is still considerable distrust on both sides. The Pakistani officials angry they weren't in the loop of the raid. At the same time, U.S. officials continue to suspect that somebody at some level inside Pakistan may have helped bin Laden hide. Now, there have been some interesting developments. The U.S. has been allowed to question bin Laden's wives. Over the weekend, Pakistan returned the wreckage of that stealth U.S. helicopter that made a crash landing the night of the raid. And then, of course, as we're reporting today, we now have word of this new CIA evidence search. So relations between U.S. and Pakistani intelligence seem to be getting at least a bit better, Harry.
Bob Orr in Washington tonight. Thanks. NATO is keeping up the pressure on Muammar Gaddafi to step down. It has been 4 straight nights now of airstrikes on Tripoli. And the British confirmed today they're sending Apache helicopters to Libya to attack Gaddafi's military. Here in this country, the deadly tornadoes, round after round of storms, have brought 218 of them since Sunday. The overall death toll now stands at 143. Nearly all of those deaths were in the city of Joplin, Missouri. Officials there put out a list this morning of 232 people still thought to be missing. Ben Tracy is in Joplin with more. Ben, good evening.
Good evening, Harry. You know, it's been about 4 days now since the tornado basically turned this town upside down. And as you mentioned, those missing people, the search for them is getting increasingly desperate. As you can see, the wreckage here stretches for miles. And while some families are still looking through it, others now have a reason to stop.
For more than 3 days, Michelle Hare has been searching for something she cannot replace. Her 16-year-old son, Lance, tossed in his car during the tornado.
His backpack was still inside of it.
When we talked to her this morning, Michelle was still positive.
Now, do you still have hope?
I obviously I have to.
But just minutes after our interview, a police officer arrived.
What happened?
I have gotten a visit from the Joplin Police Department notifying me that my son has been identified.
He's dead.
Yes, correct. But it is in some way a comfort to at least know that he's in a better place and that we don't have to wonder if he's out there needing us.
Many families are still looking for an answer. Even with this list of the missing now posted, there is a lot of confusion.
Anyway, we just found someone off the missing person list who's actually, we know their whereabouts.
Those who put the list together now admit it's not entirely accurate.
We know
that there are individuals on that list that are deceased, and we are working directly with those family members.
There are now 125 people confirmed dead, but we don't know who most of them are. Families are not allowed to go to the morgue to identify bodies. Instead, they have to submit DNA samples and dental records and hope for a match. That's causing frustration.
We have to be 100% accurate. That is why the process on our side takes a little bit longer than it needs to, than you feel it needs to.
16-month-old Skylar Logsdon became an emotional symbol of the missing on Facebook. Today, the morgue confirmed the toddler died in the storm. Yet in the midst of all that sadness, there is also this.
God, I am so happy to see you.
Neighbors who survived the storm reunited.
I didn't think we'd ever see you. I know. I know.
Tonight, this list of those 232 missing people is getting even shorter. We can report that the very first name on this list, a Miss Sally Adams, was found very much alive and well on her front porch in a chair, petting her cat. Harry?
Ben Tracy in Joplin tonight. Thank you. In politics, Sarah Palin has not said yet whether she will run for the Republican presidential nomination, but on her website today, she announced she will be making a campaign-style bus tour along the East Coast. It begins Sunday in Washington, which is where our political correspondent Jan Crawford is tonight. Jan, whenever I see a politician on a bus, they are rarely commuting. What is she up to?
Well, Harry, I mean, that is the question everyone is asking. Is she running for president, or is she just kind of leading this national conversation with voters? Now, either way, a lot of Republicans I talked to today, and I don't mean just here in Washington, but in some of those key states like New Hampshire and Iowa and South Carolina, they think this bus tour is win-win. Now, she says on her website that the point of it is to restore the good and talk about the good in America. She says she's going to be talking about the principles that this country was founded on. Even the bus has got the words from the preamble of the Constitution, "We the people," on it. Sarah Palin can galvanize conservatives and voters like any other figure. So they're saying whether she runs or not with this bus tour, she can get out there and provide a real spark. I mean, giving conservatives this kind of boost of confidence that they can beat President Obama.
But looks like a duck, quacks like a duck. Is she running?
Is it a duck? Is she? I mean, no one is saying. But I think this really is the latest sign that she could be. I mean, remember, she's beefed up her staff. Reportedly, she's bought this house in Arizona, which, of course, could be a better jumping-off point for a presidential run than Alaska. And she's had a movie made about her life and her leadership. That's going to premiere next month in Iowa. And now, of course, this bus tour. So if she is thinking about running, this is really going to help her get out there among voters, help restore her image. And, you know, that took a real beating, even among conservatives, when she quit as Alaska's governor. And she's a divisive figure. Our latest polls show that a majority of Republican voters do view her positively, but among all voters, only 26% do. So that gives Republicans some pause. They want someone that they think can beat President Obama. Harry?
All right, Jan. Well, she did say the other day she still has that fire in the belly, so we shall see.
True.
Jan Crawford, thanks. Still ahead on the CBS Evening News, researchers put an early end to a study on a common treatment for cholesterol, for fear it may actually raise the risk of stroke. But next, built to last, how to help keep your home standing when disaster strikes. In this spring of so many dangerous and deadly tornadoes, a lot of people have begun wondering if there is such a thing as safe shelter. Less than 3% of American homes have actual storm shelters, and Anthony Mason looks at how some home improvements can provide an alternative.
When her Tuscaloosa home was about to explode around her this past April, Elaine Davis and her husband took shelter.
He said he could feel the wind and the pressure on the door, and there was just a big gust of dust and dirt.
This is what saved them, a Cold War-era atomic bomb shelter with concrete walls several feet thick. The neighborhood above them was leveled, just as Joplin was on Sunday, and engineers say it's almost impossible to build a house able to withstand a tornado's fury.
Tornadoes can come in speeds up to 200 miles an hour and above, At some point, Mother Nature's physical force will overwhelm even the best engineering.
Watch these two houses bombarded with hurricane force winds at a test facility. Only the structurally reinforced home survives. Tornado winds can be twice as powerful and attack both vertically and horizontally, like a swirling sledgehammer. But installing impact-resistant windows or latching the house together at the foundation and joints with so-called hurricane ties can help keep out the wind and delay a buildup of pressure inside.
What you're really doing with the construction of a home or business is buying yourself time. You're giving yourself time to get to an interior safe room or shelter.
The starting price of a shelter is about $1,500. FEMA will pay up to 75% of the cost if it meets their standards. But even in Tornado Alley, many existing homes have no protection. Engineer David Pravat headed a National Science Foundation team that studied the Alabama tornado outbreak.
40 people lost their lives in Tuscaloosa. Anything we can do to improve even 10% or 15% reduce that number, that would be a substantial benefit.
We have to do better, scientists say, because Mother Nature will surely throw her worst at us again. Anthony Mason, CBS News, New York.
Coming up next, a study links high doses of niacin to a greater risk for stroke. More than 1.5 million Americans take prescription niacin each year. It's a form of vitamin B thought to improve heart health by raising good cholesterol. But today, the government stopped a study involving high doses of niacin over concerns that the drug may do more harm than it actually does good. Dr. John LaPook is our medical correspondent. Why was this study stopped?
Harry, this study looked at whether adding high-dose niacin to a statin would lower the risk of heart attack and stroke in patients who are already at high risk for heart disease. It did not. And not only that, it slightly increased the risk of a stroke. That could have been by chance, but it was worrisome.
This is pretty dramatic. They stopped this right in its tracks.
Doctors were amazed across the country.
This is not the first time. This has happened several times now in the last couple of years in heart studies where they're trying to work with new drugs and they've stopped them cold. Why?
And what's of concern here is that in some of these drug failures, the drugs were already on the market being taken by millions of people. So clearly the FDA has to make sure before it approves a drug that it doesn't just improve a blood test, that it actually helps a patient.
So we have all of these people, more than 1 million, who are taking niacin. Should they be concerned, or what should they do?
Well, the government specifically gave advice on this, which is do not stop taking the niacin on your own. As always, check with your doctor.
All right, Dr. John LaPook, thank you very much. For more information on this story, all you have to do is go to our partner in health news, webmd.com, and search cholesterol. Now to the changing American family. The Census Bureau reported today that married couples now make up less than half of all U.S. households. Back in 1950, it was 78%. Coming up next, revisiting Srebrenica. The world took a long time to realize that genocide had occurred in the Bosnian town of Srebrenica. In the summer of 1995, CBS News correspondent Barry Peterson, visiting refugee camps, was among the first to hear the stories about the thousands of men who disappeared. Later, 60 Minutes correspondent Bob Simon was shown evidence of the genocide.
In a field of tears, their memories of terror and death come pouring out. My family, she says. Why didn't they kill me, she is asking. Why didn't they kill me? The UN, he says, they did absolutely nothing to protect us.
It soon became clear that the Serbs had slaughtered thousands of Bosnian men and buried them in mass graves. 4 years later, UN peacekeepers, mostly from the Netherlands, admitted to 60 Minutes correspondent Bob Simon that Mladic had fooled them.
Warrant Officer Wim Dijkema belonged to that Dutch battalion, which was sent to Srebrenica to stop an attack on the town.
We came there with a will to do as much as we could do, but we failed.
Then Mladic assures the refugees they will be taken to safety. And in fact, the women and children were bussed across the front line and dumped in safe territory. The men, thousands of them, were bussed to neighboring Serb villages, lined up and shot. Hidden from the Serbs, Vim Dykema was documenting the first stages of genocide.
I realized that I have been very, very naive. When Mladic said, I guarantee their safety, that I believed him. For me, it's unbelievable now, at this moment.
All these years later, the images and the stories still haunting. That's the CBS Evening News. I'm Harry Smith. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you tomorrow night.
What if you could have the integrity, the experience, the original reporting of 60 Minutes every weeknight? Well, now you can. The CBS Evening News with Scott Pelley begins June 6th.